Welcome to This Week in Money. I'm Jim Goddard. Today, Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com comments on the red-hot U.S. economy and how platinum has taken on a golden sheen. People's Party of Canada leader Maxime Bernier explains how his party would cut your taxes, reduce red tape, and promote free enterprise in Canada. Eliminating corporate welfare is a big part of his plan. The Corbett reports James Corbett talks to us from Japan. He says the Bank of Japan is on its way to becoming the biggest shareholder in that country's major corporations, and how China is becoming more aggressive. Plus, at the end of the show, we'll have a company showcase update from American Manganese President Larry Reaugh. We'll talk to Ross Clark right after this.
Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold Discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTCQB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp, MGI and the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected several high-grade gold intersections, including 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. Additional drill targets on the LH property have been identified by a 2018 drone airborne magnetic survey to further evaluate a pyrrhotite-enriched gold-bearing system. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Welcome to This Week in Money, the source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com, where you'll find insightful market commentary and timely technical analysis. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
Always a pleasure, Jim.
A hot U.S. economy continues. The numbers pretty impressive.
The numbers are really good. I mean, 246,000 new jobs, and they revised up the August numbers. You got employment running at about 3.7%. That's pretty darn good. Inflationary aspect as far as the wages are concerned is just starting to perk up a little bit there. So, the Fed will pretty much is stuck here to make another rate increase in December, and with 2 or 3 coming again next year. We did, in the bond market, we did have a little bit of a backup in rates. We were hoping that we'd see a small pullback in the last month, what we call as an ABC correction. You get a wave of selling, a little bounce, and then another wave of selling. So rates, which had been up around 3.25% on the 10-year bond, came back under 3.1. And then this week, rallied again. We've got a new high for rates, 3.21% on the 10-year bond in the U.S. and 3.45 on the long bond. So this pause that we had for a month or so on interest rates is now behind us. It looks as though we're ready for the next leg on the upside. And it had been that rate hike in a month ago that really was the catalyst with Powell's comments from the Fed that took the market down. And interestingly enough, we've rallied back very, very strongly this week on the same time that you're having higher rates. So the market, as we see it, had very, very negative attitudes towards it a week ago. We had capitulation readings at the tail end of the previous week, the 25th and 26th, and then an outright capitulation signal on Monday. So this week turned out to be a very strong rally. The S&P, the New York Composite, recovered about 40% of the losses that they've had. The Dow actually made it back 50%. So this is a natural spot to start finding some resistance and look for a bit of a choppiness over the next couple of weeks.
The Canadian dollar, is it going to do anything even though interest rates in Canada were hiked?
The Canadian dollar has been surprisingly buoyant, considering we've been seeing on the interest rate sector, and also over on the crude oil market. I always take a look at the relationship between commodities and the Canadian dollar. So here we are. We've been just thrashing around in about a 2.5 cent trading range since the beginning of the summer. But with I think with the crude oil market now under $63, and that's for West Texas, let alone what's happening here in the Canadian market as far as oil is concerned. I think we're going to see a bit of a drop as far as the Canadian dollar is concerned, because our target levels for the crude oil are minimum of $60 on the downside, with a distinct possibility of moving well into the 50s, and that's going to hurt the Canadian dollar.
Any big moves in the precious metals market?
Well, back about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were looking at the markets starting to get up towards resistance levels. The gold market's pushed a couple of times now against the 1240-ish range. Can't seem to quite get through there. But the one that really was of note was platinum, which had been very, very buoyant in September, holding up better than the others, and then it's broken out quite nicely. There are very few of the mining companies that you can participate with that in that sector, but the ones that are there are coming to life. And if anybody's interested, they can drop me an email, and we'll send out a report to them.
And what would that email address be?
That would be Ross Clark at chartsandmarkets.com.
Ross, thanks a lot for chatting with us.
Always a pleasure.
My guest has been Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com. Coming up on This Week in Money, People's Party of Canada leader Maxime Bernier explains some of his economic plans.
Always consult your investment professional before making any investment decision.
MGX Minerals is revolutionizing the new energy economy with patented lithium extraction technology, replacing traditional solar evaporation using low-cost, low-energy nanofiltration. The first system of this paradigm shift technology is currently being commissioned. MGX Minerals trades on the CSE, symbol XMG, the OTCQB, symbol MGXMF, and Frankfurt, symbol 1MG. For more information, visit our website, mgxminerals.com.
I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of PowerBand Solutions. PowerBand is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. PowerBand Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWPF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
My guest is Maxime Bernier. He's the leader of the People's Party of Canada. You can find his website at peoplespartyofcanada.ca. He's going to be coming to Vancouver Thursday, November 8th, holding a rally, 7 o'clock at the Holiday Inn, Vancouver Centre on Broadway. Maxime, welcome back to This Week in Money.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Maxime, for people interested in the rally, how can they sign up, or they have to pay anything? How does it work?
No, that's free. They just have to come. Everybody is invited, so they can just come. They have to be there around 6:30, and we'll be there, and we'll have a discussion with the people who believe in the freedom ideas. And
are you going to be doing other rallies in other cities?
Yes, I'll do another one the day after. I'll be in Calgary. We'll do a rally over there. And I'll be also the Saturday the 10th of November. I'll be with the Rebel Media. So they have an event over there in Calgary. So I'll be with them also.
Your new party's slogan is freedom. What should freedom look like in Canada?
First of all, we must have a smaller government in Ottawa, a government that will respect the Constitution. So if we have a smaller government, we'll have more freedom, and if we have more freedom, we'll have more prosperity. So the way to do that is to do a bold reform in Ottawa that we need to do. The first one will be to have a tax system that will be more pro-investment. and lower taxes to not only entrepreneurs, but also to Canadians. We have a plan for that. We're the only party who's having a plan for that. We want to have a flat tax for entrepreneurs at 10%, and we'll be able to do that by cutting corporate welfare. As you may know, the government is spending between $5 and $8 billion every year in corporate welfare. We must cut that and use the money to lower taxes to Canadians and to entrepreneurs. So we are a plan for that. We must open also, we must be more open for foreign investment in telecom, in banking industry. When you have more investment, you have more competition, and when you have more competition, usually you have a better services at the end and a better price. So more economic policy focus on free markets and less government intervention in our day-to-day life. That will be the key.
With your party being in favor of free markets, what would free markets look like in Canada? And would it be an end to all these interprovincial barriers against trade that cost Canadians something like $40 billion a year?
Oh my God, yes, you're right. It's a shame that after 151 years, this country we still don't have a free trade in between provinces in Canada. So it's a shame because that was the goal of the father of our Constitution 151 years ago, to create an economic union in Canada, and we don't have that. So the way to have an economic union is to be sure that, first of all, to give incentive to provinces for them to cut their interprovincial barriers, so you can do that using the budget, but also at the same time to be sure that at the federal level we will do our part, and we still have a lot of regulations at the federal level that are against free trade in Canada. So, and that must be a goal of a government, to work with provincial government and to be sure that we'll have an economic union in this country. Actually, right now, we don't have that, and that's a cost for Canadian business, but also for Canadian consumers.
Would scrapping the capital gains tax ignite the Canadian economy?
That will bring more investment, and that will be a thing to do. And if we want to stay competitive with the U.S., we need to do that. Our tax reform, it's a tax reform that will help our country to be more competitive by lowering taxes to Canadians, by lowering taxes to corporations, and at the same time also by cutting capital gains tax. And also what we want also, if we want to have more investment from entrepreneurs and the private sector, they need to be able to depreciate their investment in 1 year. In the U.S., the businesses are able to do that. So like that, when a corporation can do that, they're having a better cash flow, and at the end, a better value for the corporation. So altogether, ending corporate welfare, ending the capital gains tax, being sure that businesses can depreciate their investment the first year, having a flat tax on businesses, having two rates for Canadians, one at 15% for Canadian earning more than $15,000 up to $100,000, and another one at 25% for people earning more than $100K a year. And for the poor, we need to raise the personal exemption. That is the amount that where you're not paying any income tax at the federal level. Actually, it's about $11,000 a year. So if you earn less than that, you don't pay any income tax at the federal level. We need to increase that to $15,000 a year. So like that will help the poor, and that will be a reform that would be fair for everybody. And that reform will bring more investment, will bring more jobs at the end, and more prosperity.
Alberta has I think a $25,000 exemption. Could the federal government afford to have it that high?
That must be a goal, but we need to know what would be the cost for the federal government. So in my tax proposal, we are able to increase that until up to $15,000 by using the money that we will save cutting the corporate welfare. So as I said in the beginning, we can save between $5 and $8 billion a year and use that money to lower taxes. So we need to look at it very deeply, a little bit more. But what I can tell you, the plan that I'm telling you right now, it is a plan that we can do that tomorrow morning if we are in government. But we'll need to look at if we can increase that threshold from 15 maybe to 16 or $17,000 a year. But we need to do the math, and we didn't do it right now. What I'm telling you, it's at $15,000 a year. We are able to do that reform the first year of a People's Party government.
Yeah, there's nothing like an extra $5,000 in your pocket.
Absolutely, yeah. But we have to be responsible. And our goal is to lower taxes to every Canadian. So, if we can do it, actually we will review our platform in the beginning of January and look at the latest data, and maybe we will increase that. We'll see what will happen. Canadians
are drowning in debt, probably thanks to a very loose monetary policy. Now interest rates are going up. A third of Canadians say they're scared of going bankrupt because of that. Is it extremely important to have a prime minister now who knows how to grow the economy?
It is important. It is important. You know, the Prime Minister Trudeau said that the budget would balance itself, and we know that it's not true. They're having deficit. They were supposed to have a very small deficit, $10 billion a year, and for 2 years, and that's not the case. We have a deficit in Canada around this year, $19 billion. So that's a lot, and we don't see when the federal government will balance the budget. So we need to balance the budget. And my pledge to Canadians is to balance the budget in 2 years, having some reform like privatization of Canada Post, also a reform with the CBC, cutting the CBC budget and asking the CBC to raise more money from their viewers, a little bit like PBS in the state. So we need to do this kind of reform to be able to balance the budget. But because we don't balance the budget, the cost for the government when the interest rate will increase, and they will. We know that they're artificially very low right now, and they will increase. That will have an impact for Canadian consumers for sure, and that will have an impact also for the federal government because we are paying interest on our debt, and we have a huge debt. Right now, the interest that the federal government is paying on its own debt every year, it's about $25 billion a year. So it's almost the entire budget of the national defense. Imagine what we can do with $25 billion a year if we didn't have to pay interest. So that's it. And that amount will grow if the interest rate are going up. And I think they will. So that will have an impact for the federal government, and that will have an impact for Canadians also. So that's why the economic policy of the Trudeau government, it is not a good one. We need to get rid of this deficit. We need to lower taxes to Canadians because if they have to pay more interest, they need to have more money in their own pockets. So the way to do that is to give them a break and lower their taxes, and like that they will have a break and they will have more resources to pay a higher interest rate.
What a good example of what happens to government revenue when you lower taxes be when they lowered business taxes. All these corporate head offices in the U.S. moved to Canada, I think 400 or so. If you lower taxes again, could we see another wave of international head offices moving to this country, improving employment, and actually raising, that raises government revenue, doesn't it, when you cut taxes because you have more economic activity?
Absolutely. You have more investment, you have more jobs, you have more economic activity, and yes, that's the way for being more prosper. And yes, you will attract also foreign investment. But yes, you must lower taxes, but at the same time also, you must open our border for foreign investment. Actually, right now, we don't allow foreign investment in the telecom industry, and we must have more competition against Bell and Telus. That would be good for consumers. We must open also foreign investment in our banking industry. So we need to do these changes also, being sure that we have an open economy, and a foreigner that wants to invest in this country must be able to do it.
We'll have more with Maxime Bernier when This Week in Money returns.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp. is a Canadian-based mineral exploration project generator. The company currently holds multiple property interests in Ontario with joint venture partners and is seeking further joint venture partners for other drill-ready properties in our portfolio. For more information, please visit our website at rmroyalty.com or call me at 604-922-2030.
Vatic Ventures Corp. is a potash exploration company focused on the Korat Basin in Thailand, the world's largest undeveloped potash resource. Vatic's management has extensive potash exploration and development experience in Thailand. Vatic will have marketing advantage compared to Western producers. Drill program commences this spring. Vatic trades on the TSX Venture, symbol VCV, and on Frankfurt, symbol V8V2. Visit our website, vaticventures.com.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back to This Week in Money. We're speaking with Maxime Bernier. Maxime, to make Canada a very business-friendly place, how important is it to shrink the size of government and cut regulations?
It is the key. It is very, very important. If you don't do that, you won't be able to cut taxes because you'll create another deficit. You'll add that to deficit. So it is important to do it. It is important to have a plan. It is important to be able to do the reform that will have a smaller government. One of our reform is to get rid of the CRTC in the telecom industry. We don't need that regulator in the telecom industry. Why? We will have a special regulator for telecom, and you don't have a special regulator for, aluminum industry. So we must do this kind of reform, and like that we'll be able to save money and will be able to lower taxes. So yes, it's about an open economy, a real free trade in Canada in between provinces, the signing free trade agreement. We just signed one with the U.S. I'm happy with that, but because the Trudeau government didn't put on the table the abolition of the cartel of supply management, we didn't have the best deal because the U.S. are still imposing tariff on aluminum and steel because the Trudeau government decided not to put on the table the abolition of the cartel in dairy, poultry, and eggs. That's having an effect also for Canadian consumers. As you know, we are paying twice the price for these products because the cartel are fixing the price. It's an artificially high prices for Canadian if they want to buy these products. So let's do these kind of reform, being sure that we'll have a smaller government, but also a government that won't interfere in provincial jurisdiction. Right now, we have the Trudeau government that are interfering in provincial jurisdiction. In housing, it's a provincial jurisdiction. We must not interfere in that. So they try to interfere in other jurisdiction, in provincial jurisdiction. So let's have a government that will be very active in its own jurisdiction, but not interfering in provincial jurisdiction, having a smaller government with reform. And I think that's why people like what we are saying, because we are current. We are having a very current platform based on 4 principles: individual freedom, personal responsibility, fairness, and respect. And people can go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca, and read the platform. And I think they will know that we are ready for the next election. We have our platform right now, and I'm campaigning right now.
What percentage of working Canadians actually are employed in the public sector?
A lot. I don't have the data with me right now, but I must guess it must be more than 20%, and so that's a lot. But also these people are having very good condition, also good pension and a very good salary. But we must not forget that all that it is being paid by Canadians, by the private sector, and so that's why we must do a reform and being sure that we have less people working for the government. But you need to do some reform. Why are we having, I don't know, there's about about 10,000 people working in the health department in Ottawa, and we're not managing any hospital in Ottawa. That's not our job. That's a provincial level. So 10,000 people working in the health department when it's a shared jurisdiction with provinces and we don't manage any hospital. So you need to look at it globally and find a saving for having a smaller government and being able to cut taxes.
To do the best job for the people of Canada, should governments be fiscally conservative and socially liberal?
But fiscally conservative for sure, and socially liberal. What you mean by that, if I can, it's a government that won't interfere in your day-to-day life, and a government that will respect your privacy, a government that will respect your independence, a government that will speak to you like an adult, not like an adolescent or a child with a lot of regulations. So I must say yes, a government that is less intrusive in our day-to-day life on the social issues, and a fiscal responsible government. That's why we are saying to Canadians, if you want that, you can count on us for having this kind of reform.
Conservative leader Andrew Scheer said he may recriminalize marijuana if he's prime minister. Would you do that?
No, I won't. It's a done deal. The toothpaste, it is out of the tube, so it's a done deal. Maybe we will review the legislation to be sure to have a legislation that it is more in line with what Canadians want. But the legalization, it's a done deal, and we won't reopen that. So we are very clear.
We'll have more with Maxime Bernier when This Week in Money returns.
AMY.V Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, AMY.V's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at AMYresources.com.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, Recycling Trade Publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMY.ZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back to This Week in Money. We're speaking with Maxime Bernier. Maxime, if you were elected Prime Minister today, what would you do to make Canada an economic powerhouse?
I'll let entrepreneurs and Canadians to do what they want. I won't interfere in their life. I want lower taxes. I will have open border on the economy. I want foreign investment will come to this country. We will have a real free trade between provinces. We will balance the budget. We will show stability to the markets by having a government that is doing what we must do under our jurisdiction. We will do some reform to being sure to have a smaller government. For us, it is not only a slogan, it is a reality, like privatization of Post Canada and other reform like that. So there's a lot of things to do to be sure that we'll have a smaller government and more prosperity in this country, and we're ready to do it.
Are you optimistic the mainstream media in Canada will be fair to you and your new party?
I hope so. If they not, we will call it. I did an interview with CBC and they were not fair a couple of weeks ago, and I tweeted about that, and I said, what you did, it was fake news. But it's a case by case. Actually, the role of the media is to be sure to for the politician to be accountable for what they're saying. So the media, they can interpret what I'm saying, but I don't want them to put some words in my mouth. And if that happens, I will call it. But I respect the work of the media. We we need independent media that will ask the real question to politicians. My goal is to be to speak to Canadians and using all the media that are available, the traditional media, the radio, the TV, the social media, Facebook, Twitter, numeric radio. And I'm doing that to be sure to speak with a lot of Canadians.
Is the Trudeau government turning into Big Brother by accessing the bank accounts of Canadians without their permission?
Oh my God, that's a shame. That's illegal. They want to do that using Statistic Canada, and I said that. I tweet about that. I hope that we'll be able to stop the government, but it's a big intrusion in our privacy, and that being done by the government that is supposed to protect our privacy, it's something that we cannot tolerate as Canadian, and I hope that Canadian will be on our side and fight with us against the government on that. They have access right now to our bank account, our transaction every day, our money that we are transferring to our family, the bill that we are paying. It's private information. It's the most important information and it must be private. And the government is saying, no, Statistic Canada can use it. And I said that they must stop it. I hope we'll have a lot of Canadians on our side that will put a lot of pressure to the government for them to stop to use personal and private information.
There's growing awareness of the toxic effects of pesticides on humans and also our pets and our farm animals. Yet so far it seems governments are ignoring our concerns. They don't even have standards. They just have guidelines. Would the People's Party be willing to stand up to the pesticide industry and make sure that we don't have pesticides in our food and water?
Yeah, that would be important. I don't know the detail of this regulation, but some part of that also, it is a provincial responsibility also. But at the federal level, we need to be sure that we'll have a clean environment, and that's something that I'm ready to look at it. But I don't know the detail of this file, I must admit it.
We have a question from a Western separatist. What does the People's Party have for alienated Western Canadians?
But first of all, I'm telling them that we're the only party in Ottawa that want to change the equalization formula for being less generous and being fair for everybody. It is not fair right now that Western Canadians are paying for Quebec right now, my own province. And I said that in French in Quebec also. I said the same thing in French. And I said to Quebecers that I'm not proud as a Quebecers that we receive equalization money. If we are receiving equalization in money, it's because we are a poor province. And we must be a rich province and not receiving equalization money. But we are receiving equalization money also because of the formula. The way that the formula is done, you don't count the hydroelectricity in the formula, but you take into account the energy coming from oil and gas. So that's not fair. That's why we must change the formula. We must give incentive to provinces for them to develop their own natural resources. And right now with the formula, Quebec doesn't have any incentive to develop natural resources like shale gas, because if they're doing that, they will be richer and they will receive less equalization money. So we need to change the equalization formula, and the only politician in Ottawa is speaking about that, and the formula must be less generous and fair. So I think that's why you have people in Western Canada that are fed up with that, and the answer is to look at our program and vote for the People's Party of Canada, and you'll have a big change there.
Should Canada continue to spend money abroad instead of using it to help Canadians in need?
First of all, we must help our people. In our platform, we are saying we must stop foreign aid only when there's a disaster, environmental disaster or something like that. But it is not the role of the government to build roads in Africa. It is not the role of the government to fight terrorism in other countries. We must do that here in Canada. So we are spending a lot of money in other countries, And the Trudeau government is doing that because they want to have a seat at the UN, and they try to, they're in a political campaign right now and try to have a lot of support from different countries, and they're spending a lot of money outside Canada. I think we must help our people here in Canada first, and that must be the goal. And if we are cutting some international aids, that's another part where we'll be able to save money and use that money to lower taxes to Canadians. We are the only party, again, who wants to stop foreign aid only when it's an urgency. And I think we have a lot of support for that.
What has Justin Trudeau done for the Canadian economy?
The economy is not too bad right now. People, they are having a job, except in Western Canada, it's a little bit more difficult. But that's not because of the government. That's because of the private sector. The private sector are doing their best to create jobs, but right now, what the Trudeau government is doing is not helping the private sector with a carbon tax. I'm against a carbon tax. I'm against the Paris Accord. It's another kind of way to transfer money from Canada to other countries. So the Trudeau government is not helping the economy right now with his when he's taxing people, when he's taxing corporation, and they are raising taxes on small business. They did that last summer. Now they will raise taxes on every Canadian and businesses with their carbon tax. So they're not helping the economy. Maybe we don't see the effect right now, but we'll see the effect soon. And so if Canadians are not investing and foreigners are not investing in Canada, and we can see that foreign investment and private investment in Canada is going down. So that will have an effect down a little bit later because we are having less investment, we'll have less job creation. So what we need to do is get rid of the carbon tax and other taxes that the Trudeau government impose on businesses. And also it's a little bit hypocrite what the Trudeau government are doing on the carbon tax. They're saying we are taxing pollution. First of all, CO2, it is not pollution. It is what I'm emitting right now when I'm speaking to you. Yes, too much CO2 can create greenhouse gases. I understand that, but CO2 it's very important for life. It is important for life. Second, they're saying we will impose Canadian the carbon tax to save the planet, but it won't happen. They had to impose a carbon tax of around $500 a ton for having a kind of an impact. So they are taxing right now. The tax would be around $20 a ton. So that won't have any impact. That they won't be able to achieve the goal that they are having to lower the emission, and they won't be able to save the planet because our emissions are only 1.6% of the global emissions on the planet. So they're saying to Canadians, we'll save the planet with that. Will it be able to achieve our target that we signed in Paris? That won't happen, and they are destroying the economy with that tax. So and also it is not helping Canadians. We need to give them their own money in their own pockets. But what they are telling Canadians, they're saying we will tax you, but you'll receive more money after that. We'll give you more money. So why taxing first if they're saying that they will give more money? So they try to sell that carbon tax, but Canadians are not crazy. They understand that it's only a tax, and they don't believe the government when the government is saying we will give you more money than what you're paying right now. So it's a shame, and we need to fight that, and I'm there to fight it. And I think we have a lot of support from Canadians on that.
Would the new USMCA or no barriers, no tariffs, no subsidies trade deal be better for Canada and the U.S.? Just rip up the whole thing and have real free trade.
Yeah, but we must admit that it is a managed trade right now. It is not a free trade, but it's better to have that managed trade than no agreement with the U.S. And I know that it's not the best deal, but for me as a member of parliament, I will vote for that bill because it's better than no deal. So we must try to negotiate real free trade. And real free trade can start right now in Canada. It can be a decision from the federal government abolishing the cartel of supply management and having a real free trade in poultry, eggs, and milk. And Canadians will be able to buy their milk, eggs, and poultry half the price coming from other countries. So that if we want to have a real free trade or more free trade, the federal government can do that alone by abolishing this cartel. So, but actually we have a deal with the U.S. I think it's a good deal. It's not a perfect deal. I will be in favor of that. But we the government, the Canadian government can do a little bit more for real free trade by abolishing some regulation, abolishing the cartel of supply management, and that would be a good sign. But as you know, I'm the only politician in Canada in the House of Commons who want to fight for Canadian consumers. All the other parties, they are working for a special interest group, the cartel of supply management.
Would the People's Party of Canada be beholden to its backers?
What do you mean? To what? Sorry?
Well, it seems to me the Conservatives and Liberals, for example, both get an equal contribution from the big banks. Would the People's Party of Canada be beholden to its big backers?
For us, we are following the legislation. We receive money from Canadians, and they can give us a maximum of $15.75, and we have a lot of money that are coming from Canadians, but it's a small donation, $5, $2, $25, and we're very pleased to have these donors. So we are working for all Canadians, and we don't try to please a special interest group, or our policies are based on our principle, and that's why our party is called the People's Party of Canada, because we are working for the people, and we are raising money with Canadians, and it's only Canadians, and we have a lot of donors, a lot of small donation, and I prefer that like that from a lot of donors, and I'm very respectful for that, and because of them, we are able to be to raise money, and we are able to establish this party. Actually, right now we are having more than 100 riding association in different riding in this country. Before the end of December, we want to have 338 riding association. So that means an organization in every riding in Canada will be able to achieve that. We are having more than 30,000 funding members after only 7 weeks. If you look at the Conservative Party of Canada, they're having 100,000 members. So it's going well for us, and we are able to do that because people like our ideas, like the authenticity of our campaign. I'm not trying to please everybody. If you don't like what I'm saying right now today, just vote for another party. I'll be okay with that. If you like what you are saying, come on board. You can go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca, and I hope that you'll vote for us, and we'll see what will happen. But we won't do any compromise with our principle, and I think that's why we are able to raise money, and that's why Canadians are supporting us.
It looks possible that President Trump will be in power for another 6 years. Just how important is it for Canada socially and economically to be the best friend of the U.S.?
Well, it is important. You know, they are our biggest clients. So we need to have good relationship. And that's why the way that the Trudeau government managed the relationship with the Trump administration was not the best one. At the end, they were able to have a deal, but my God, after a long negotiation, and Trudeau was trying to impose his own agenda on the U.S., like having a discussion about climate change in a free trade agreement. That's not the place. A free trade agreement must be an agreement to help to have services and goods crossing the borders without any tariff or without any regulation against that. So at least we have that free trade agreement. But the relationship with us in the U.S., it's always an important one. And for us, we know that, and I'm not so pleased the way that the Trudeau government managed the relationship with the Trump administration up to now.
Should rebuilding Canada's military and taking care of our vets be a priority?
It must be, actually, yes. And what we are doing right now, we didn't spend what we said that we would spend on our defense, and achieving a ratio of 5% of our GDP in Canada. And so we're not spending that. I think that must be our goal, but we must have a budget in our budget. It must be increase every year to be able to achieve that goal. Right now, the Trudeau government are doing nothing. They are saying, yes, our goal is to achieve that target, but without anything specific in their budget. So the last one and the one before. So yes, we must invest a little bit more in our defense, and we must be sure to have a very good relationship with our veterans, and that's not happening right now. That must be a priority for our country.
Trudeau only called 1 out of 4 federal by-elections with seats that are open. Is that a move to keep NDP leader Jasmeet Singh out of the House?
I don't know. You must ask the question to Justin Trudeau. But for us, we will have the authorization to have a candidate in a by-election only after December 11. So if the Trudeau government are going ahead with by-election after December 11, we'll be able to have candidates. And that's a good news for us, because we want to participate in this by-election. So we'll see what will happen. But these by-election will be this year or in the beginning of next year. And the good news for us, we will have a People's Party of Canada candidate in every of these by-election.
Are there major differences in leadership between Andrew Scheer and Justin Trudeau?
I think they're the same. They're the same on certain aspects. They're the same about corporate welfare, except that Scheer is saying that he's against corporate welfare, but at the same time, he doesn't want to cut any corporate welfare. He doesn't want to cut subsidies to businesses, and so it's only a slogan for him. He's for the Paris Accord, and like Trudeau is for the Paris Accord, and he said that we must have a strong goal to achieve the goal in a strong goal and being able to achieve the Paris Accord goals. And I'm not in favor of that. You know, we will destroy our economy if we are serious about it. But Justin Trudeau and him, they're the same about that. And speaking about the equalization formula, the two, they want to keep the equalization formula like that. They don't want to reopen that file. On immigration, they're the same. I'm the only party who asks for less immigration, less immigrants, but more economic immigrants. I want to go back to the average of immigrants that we had under Stephen Harper, around 250,000 a year. Now the Trudeau government, they want to go to 350,000 a year in 2 years from now. So for me, we need to be sure that these people will integrate our society, will be part of our society, and I want them to come here and having a job. So when you have a job, it's easier for you to integrate our society. So I'm the only one who asks for less immigration. I'm not anti-immigration. I'm anti-mass immigration, and that's what Trudeau is doing right now. But I'm for more economic immigrants. So on that, Trudeau and Scheer are the same. So for me, it's the same old parties, and I think Canadians are ready to vote for a new party that will defend their values with passion and conviction, and that's what we are doing.
You think Canadians are tired of voting for the lesser of evils?
I think so. You know, I saw a poll recently that 51% of Canadians were saying that they're ready to vote for a new party. For us, that's good news. And actually, at the last election, 30% of the population, 30% of Canadians didn't vote at the last election because they don't believe in politicians anymore. Like Scheer and Trudeau, they are saying something a day and the opposite the other day. And so we're not like that. We don't try to please special interest group, and they try to do that. Scheer is trying to do that with the dairy producer, and they want to keep their votes, but is working against 36 million Canadians, consumers, that are paying twice the price for these products. So we don't do that. And I think both parties, the old parties, people want to try a new party, and my goal is to offer them that option.
We hear of people getting into politics for all the right reasons, only to be consumed or suppressed by the corrupt political machine. How can that be changed so great people will want to get into politics to help continue making Canada the best country in the world?
Yeah, but I'm very pleased that our membership and people who are coming with us, it's because they believe that what we are saying, it's what we will do, and they know that we are authentic. And what I'm saying right now, I said that the last 10 years in different speeches. So if you want to attract good people in politics, you must first of all show to Canadians that you'll be honest, that you'll be authentic, and you believe in some values. You know, the Conservative Party of Canada right now, they don't have any core values. They don't have any principles. They're doing polling. They have a lot of money. They're doing polling, and they try to please every special interest group to have votes. And for us, we won't do that. We are having policies that are good for the country, that are good for Canadians, and without trying to please every special interest group. And I think if you're doing that, you'll be able to attract good people. And that's what we will do in January. We'll find our candidates. And as soon as the riding association are up and running at the end of December, so in the beginning of January, we'll find candidates, and we'll be able to have good candidates, I'm sure.
Would the People's Party of Canada allow its members to have a freer caucus, a freer voice, to have more of a consensus instead of being from the top down kind of leadership?
Yeah, I think we need in Canada more free vote, and that's what I said. I'll give you an example. Andrew Scheer is a social conservative, and he's okay with that, and he's against abortion, but he's saying to his member and to Canadians that he doesn't want to reopen the debate. And Justin Trudeau is pro-choice and is for abortion. So for me, what I'm saying, in Canada you have pro-life and pro-choice people, and you must respect both of them. So what I'm saying, it won't be in my program to reopen that debate. But I'm very honest with Canadians. I'm saying them, if I have a member of parliament who want to reopen the debate and having a legislation on abortion, we will have a debate on that, because that's the democratic right of a member of parliament to table private bill on any subject. So I will respect the democratic right of a member of parliament, and I won't be like Andrew Scheer. So what I'm saying, it would be free vote. If a member of parliament from the People's Party of Canada want to reopen the debate, we'll have that debate in Canada, but it will be a free vote. And I hope that we'll be able to have more free vote in the parliament. That will be good for our democracy.
Maxime, how can people find out more about the People's Party of Canada?
They can go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca. On the website, they have all the platform. The platform is there with all our ideas, and they can also become a member. It's $5 for 1 year, $20 for 5 years, and at the same time, they will receive news from the party. So I'm very pleased. Up to now, we did a big achievement yesterday. They had until the end of this month to be a funding members, and our goal was to have around 20,000 funding members. But up to now, we have 35,000 funding members. So I'm very pleased with that. It's a big achievement for us. And now people who are going on the website, they will be regular members. And our goal is to have more, because right now we are able to build a party in every region of this country because of the membership that we are having. So it is great. Imagine the Green Party, after 30 years of existence, they're having around 20,000 members. And we after 7 weeks, 31,000 members. So that's telling you that is telling you something, that Canadians, they're ready for a change and they like what we are saying. And now what I have to do, I have to travel across the country and to meet people. And like you said in the beginning, I'll be in Vancouver. We have an event over there, and I'll be also in Calgary for another event after that.
Yeah, so the event in Vancouver, 7 o'clock, November 8th at the Holiday Inn at the Vancouver Centre on Broadway. Maxime, thank you so much for being back on This Week in Money.
But thank you for your time, and have a nice day.
My guest has been Maxime Bernier, leader of the People's Party of Canada. Coming up, Corbett Report publisher James Corbett reporting from Japan. Next on This Week in Money.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and Canada. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead zinc silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic engineer gold mine in the Atlan district of northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
My guest is James Corbett, publisher of thecorbettreport.com and editorial writer for the International Forecaster. He's speaking to us from Japan, where he has worked and lived since 2004. Welcome back to the show, James.
Always a pleasure.
James, all the attention paid to the stock markets here where, they're down for 3 or 4 days and up again. Are you seeing the same kind of bounces in Asia?
Yes, it's being characterized as mixed markets over here, but I think the general trend that we've seen is to the down side of things. And for anyone who wasn't paying attention in the U.S. specifically, the S&P fell 6.9% in October. The NASDAQ dropped 9.2% in October, which tells a story in and of itself. I think obviously tech stocks took a bit of a hammering this past month, and although there has been a couple of days of rallying, it wasn't enough to erase all of those losses. So it is an interesting up and down, and mostly down at this particular moment. But as I wrote about in the most recent Forecaster, I look at this from the perspective not as someone who's really concerned about the minute up and down movements here and there of the stock markets, if for any other reason than to give the general trend indicators, or at least what we're expected to take away from the overall state of the economy, because of course we've all been conditioned to believe that the stock markets are the bellwether of the economy, and maybe there was a point in time in which that was true, but I would argue that in the post-Lehman era, the post-2008 crisis era, that is no longer true in the U.S. or anywhere else around the world, as we've seen, of course, the influx of so many bajillions, billions upon billions of dollars of quantitative easing from the various central banks around the world that have engaged in that. Now, of course, we're starting to see the opposite of that. Quite literally, they're talking about quantitative tightening in the U.S., and we're seeing that as a result of these Fed interest rate hikes. And now, of course, Trump is saying, well, the Fed's gone crazy, and why are they raising rates? When, of course, candidate Trump back on the campaign trail was saying, oh, this is no fair. It's a big, fat, ugly bubble that the Fed has blown by keeping rates too low. So, wait 5 minutes and wait for the next pronouncement from Trump. But anyway, I think we know where this is heading, which is towards the if not the popping, at least the sucking out of the air from the bubble that's been pumped over the last 10 years. And really the only question is there an easy and safe landing for world markets? And the answer is probably exacerbated by the the trade war, of course, that we're always talking about here, between China and the U.S., which is dragging the rest of the world into it. And the latest indicator of that is Chinese manufacturing has missed estimates. Apparently the latest reading on the Chinese manufacturing index is 50.2, which indicates a lower number than was being expected. And that's reflected not just in China, but also industrial output for September for South Korea and Japan, both coming in below estimates, and third quarter industrial output for Taiwan. So again, we're starting to see the global drag on manufacturing that is happening as a result of this drag on global trade that is happening as a result of the trade war. And we're starting, I think, to see some of the effects of that reflected in the stock market. We've already seen a number of crises in emerging markets, reflected most obviously in their currency tumbles in Argentina, in India, in other places besides Indonesia have all taken a battering in recent months as the U.S. dollar is being sucked out of those emerging markets back home as a result of these rate hikes. So it seems like a perfect storm for what started out the year as a lot of optimism and, there's a lot of, we're going to see some global growth in the next couple of years. All of that is being revised downwards now. So I see this as just part of a much bigger story that reflects some pretty worrying trends, I think, for the next several years.
Yes, an essay was in the Wall Street Journal suggesting this is more geopolitical than economic right now. Would you agree?
I think the geopolitical concerns have played into the economic trends. And, that's an interesting statement in and of itself because, of course, it reflects the fact that the markets really are a reflection of mass psychology. And mass psychology depends on what's in the news and the way things are trending. And what's in the news right now, of course, is the ever looming specter of some sort of trade war or more with China. And that's something that I've written about in the Forecaster in the last several months was the idea that trade wars tend to become hot wars at some point or other if things get bad enough. And we only have to look back to the 30s and the Smoot-Hawley tariffs and all of that was going on in the 30s as one of the forerunners to World War II. It sounds extremely ominous and perhaps hyperbolic, but I think it's something that we have to keep in mind, especially given the growing military tensions between China and the U.S. as well, and how that plays into these situations, especially now that analysts are talking about the idea that these trade wars could go on for years, if not decades.
Are there increased military tensions around Taiwan, or as China likes to call it, Taipei?
Yes, there are. And that's reflected in a number of things, but I think one of the stories that I found most ominous recently was China's president orders military to prepare for war. And this is based on a South China Morning Post report of basically President for Life Xi Jinping's visit to a military command where he was saying it's necessary to strengthen the mission and concentrate preparations for fighting a war. And this centers around, I think, the growing tensions with the United States. And obviously one of the key points of concern has always been Taiwan. And that in U.S. military planning for decades, revolving around theoretical conflict with China, has always reflected around the idea of Taiwan. And what if China went into Taiwan and tried to take the Taiwan Strait? How would the U.S. react? That's what military planning is really centered around, and it continues to be an incredibly important part of this story. And last week, you had China's foreign ministry expressing concern, quote unquote, at the recent passage of 2 U.S. warships through the Taiwan Strait. And they said specifically, quote, China has closely followed the passing of U.S. warships through the Taiwan Strait and monitored the whole process. We urge the U.S. to strictly abide by the 3 China-U.S. joint communiques and properly handle Taiwan-related issues so as to avoid impairing bilateral relations as well as peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait, end quote. Translation, the Taiwan Strait continues to be an extremely politically sensitive and militarily sensitive area, and the U.S., knowing this, is sending warships through the Taiwan Strait. That's clearly a message at Beijing, and it clearly amps up the tensions that are already there.
Is that similar to the Russians sending bombers near Alaska just to test out the defenses and see what the possible reaction might be?
One has to wonder what the bigger game plan here is, and I think it has to be something along those lines, although maybe not seeing testing the defense mechanisms per se so much as the political response, because again, I think this is in the realm of geopolitics at the moment. I don't have the impression that either side wants to start a hot war at this point, except for perhaps some of the hotheads in the military, but I don't think any of the political leadership is really looking to start a war, all-out war at this point. But I think they are testing the waters quite literally, with regards to political resolve on issues like these and how far things can go, and also in the idea of establishing norms or changing norms, because just as China, and through its actions in the South China Sea, is trying to change the game and basically create a precedent for its 9-dash line that they have around the South China Sea, and claiming vast chunks of that territory that are not officially recognized. Well, once they start constructing fake islands or man-made islands and putting military installations on them, it becomes a fait accompli. It becomes a point of fact. And I think the U.S. might be trying to do a similar thing with regards to the Taiwan Strait.
We'll have more with James Corbett right after the break.
I'm Greg Johnston, CEO of Carl Data Solutions, an industrial Internet of Things company that provides big data solutions for monitoring critical infrastructure. Carl Data offers machine learning and predictive analytics features through our cloud-based applications to deliver key asset-saving operational insights from massive amounts of data. Carl Data trades on the CSE symbol CRL and the pink symbol CDTAF. For more details on Carl Data, please visit carlsolutions.com.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with James Corbett. James, are investors in China trying to look for areas that can't or won't be hit by tariffs or unlikely to be hit like with tariffs, places like education?
Well, I don't know if education investment is a large part of the Chinese economy, but I think people are trying to find different ways that they can brace for what's coming with regards to the trade war. But perhaps their best strategy is to really follow, as they say in the U.S., don't fight the Fed. Well, I guess in China it would be don't fight the PBOC, the People's Bank of China. And we're really starting to see indications that something is coming from the Chinese government. We just don't know what it's going to be quite at this point, but we saw just in the last 24 hours a new message from the Politburo, obviously the Chinese ruling body, chaired by President for Life Xi Jinping, who are signaling some sort of stimulus measures that are going to be taken, presumably as a result of the flagging economy as a result of this trade war. And so, again, it's quite vague at this point. They haven't really said precisely what is going to change, but they did say that the nation's economic situation is changing, downward pressure is increasing, and the government needs to take timely steps to counter this. So we can look for some sort of stimulus coming in the near future, but what form that will take is up in the air. But if the last decade or so of Chinese growth is anything to go by, there will be further liquidity provided to Chinese markets, and there will be some sort of likely infrastructure spending, domestic infrastructure spending, whether that's building more ghost cities or something along those lines. It looks like the Chinese government is going to be stepping in. So if I was a smart investor in China, I guess I would be looking for some contacts with Chinese Communist Party officials who could get me the contracts for whatever infrastructure spending is about to be pouring out of the Chinese government.
China just removed its 50% tax on new auto sales. Is that an attempt to stimulate the auto sector?
It seems to, which is interesting because, of course, a lot of the policies that have been instituted regarding auto sectors, at least in the major urban population centers, has been about restricting, if not restricting sales or access to cars, at least restricting their ability to be on the road, which is, for example, I think famously in Beijing, they have the system where odd-numbered license plates can drive on certain days and even numbers on the other days. So most people will have two cars, one with each type of plate, so they can drive every day. Which actually may be a way of trying to amp up auto sales. But anyway, certainly drastic slashes in taxes and tariffs and other types of economic impediments on automobile sales will obviously have the effect of driving up car sales. And this is probably part of the larger, I think, Chinese dream of really cultivating domestic markets and domestic manufacturing, which is, I think, going to take over imports in the coming years in China generally, when we're looking at auto sales in particular.
Well, it seems to me China doesn't want to be reliant on other nations because they've been burned by U.S. tariffs. So why not develop your own domestic market?
Yeah, exactly right. And of course, this is tied into the, I can't remember what they call it, the Vision 2030 or whatever it is, where they're planning to be world leaders in technological development, specifically AI, but technology generally by 2030. And, of course, they're already getting into chip manufacturing and other types of more detailed manufacturing than they've been involved in before, which is becoming a security concern in the West as more and more electronic products are being manufactured in China to the point where there may be special backdoors included in some of these products. Anyway, this is part of the Chinese vision, broadly speaking, and I think it does apply more broadly in the general economic sector, not just to technology. And I think ultimately the plan will be to be a self-reliant economy. Still a ways to go, but I think they're getting there slowly.
Yes, speaking of backdoor technology, Australia apparently has banned Chinese involvement in the expansion of their 5G network. Contrast that to BC, where TELUS is using Huawei microcell towers for their 5G. Are there concerns in Japan and other Asian countries about using Chinese products because they might be sending information directly to Beijing?
Yes, of course, that is absolutely a concern, and actually, and interestingly, I think a growing concern, as there seems to be a collective moment of pause for hesitation and contemplation about the growing role of China. Of course, everyone sees the sort of military steps in South China Sea and those types of dramatic things, but the economic side of Chinese expansion has been largely welcomed and embraced in Asia and elsewhere in recent years, because it seems like money from heaven that's just being flooded in, and they're investing in infrastructure here and they're giving us loans there. But now that the piper is done the tune and is being asked to be paid in certain cases, for example, the Sri Lanka deep sea port, which China recently took over because Sri Lanka couldn't handle the payments on it anymore, there's a lot more hesitation, and we've seen some dramatic cancellations of large-scale construction contracts with China as more nations like Malaysia and others are starting to recontemplate their relationship with China. And I think that's obviously also going to be reflected in the tech sector and this Chinese technology, which is starting to become more and more woven into the fabric of a lot of different nations. I think there has to be pause for concern about the possibility of backdoors. Of course, realistically, this should apply whether that technology is coming from the U.S. or China or any other country. But at any rate, it is starting to enter the conversation now.
We'll have more with James Corbett right after this.
Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the Pink's CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Don't miss out Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com. This Week in Money is archived online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with James Corbett. James, are international investors trying to move away from China because of the political situation there and perhaps focus on India, which people keep saying someday will surpass China as the world's largest economy?
Yeah, they keep saying that, don't they? And India has always been, I think, the hope for a lot of investors because it's a democracy. It should be on paper, theoretically, it should be a better place for business. But of course, India is quite famous, I think, for its red tape and economic impediments to business. I think they're trying to change that image, but it is happening slowly. And things like the great demonetization scheme of the Modi government a couple of years ago do not, I think, put a lot of faith in investors in the stability of the Indian markets and the economic landscape there. So there's a lot of problems with that idea that, India will be the next big hope and we can bypass China. The other flip side of that, though, is that China has never exactly been a warm and welcome place for international investors. It's always been difficult to get money, not necessarily to get money into China, but to get it out of China has always been a big question mark because, of course, of all of the capital controls that are placed and the controls over the yuan itself. So until there's a broad degree of liberalization, I think it will still continue to be not a very attractive place for international investors generally, which is, again, I think part of the reason why they want India to be the place to invest. But India has, for the last couple of decades, failed so far to live up to the hype that surrounded it, as they're going to surpass China. This is going to be the big place to take off. It hasn't, I think, taken off in that big way yet. And there's still a lot of question marks hanging over India, which really does leave investors, I think, wondering so what emerging market really is the place to be in? And if you're going to ask that to me next, don't, because I don't think I have that answer for you.
Have economists been critical of the Bank of Japan? One of them quoted as saying, they don't do anything. They do nothing. They don't deserve the money they get to run the place.
That's an interesting criticism because I think the exact opposite could be leveled, that they're doing too much. Insofar as, again, as we've talked about before, the Bank of Japan is becoming a majority shareholder in quite a large number of the corporations listed on the Nikkei Stock Exchange, not directly, but through their ETFs, as they're doing ETF purchases as part of their quantitative easing. So I think the Bank of Japan does do things, but not necessarily things that are going to lead to long-term economic stability, because the question always is, yes, of course, the central bank can just print money from nothing and buy into ETFs and prop up bonds and stocks and whatever else they want to. But the question is, well, are they going to continue to do that indefinitely? And if not, how do you withdraw from that? And the BOJ has already had problems with that question regarding some of their deliberations, and we've seen some of the members of the board of the BOJ coming out saying we're basically painted ourselves into a corner and there's no way we're going to be able to get out of this. And I think that is the big question hanging over the Japanese economy. It is addicted to Bank of Japan stimulus money at this point, and without that, where would Japan be? And that's a big question mark. And I don't think there's an answer to that at this point. So they're just going to continue doing what they're doing. So the idea that the Bank of Japan is doing nothing, it may seem that way, but I think they're actually doing a lot. It's just that they're doing so much that if they were to remove themselves from the situation, that would be the change to the current status quo that would make everyone realize that the emperor is wearing no clothes.
James, also, you're working on a documentary. Can you tell us about that?
Well, next week is going to be the 100th anniversary of the armistice that ended the First World War, and I thought that would be a good time to reflect on the question of what really started the First World War, because I think we all learn in our history classes, to the extent that we learn about World War I at all, we learn that it started with the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo on the 28th of June, 1914, and then a lot of diplomatic crises and negotiations led to military mobilizations, which led to war, which is a neat and pat enough little story and true enough in and of itself. But there's actually a much bigger story that goes back to the late 19th century and the rivalry between England and Germany that was developing at that time, and how that a lot of different diplomatic negotiations took place in that decade leading up to the First World War that basically made it so that something like an assassination of some relatively periphery character in Europe could lead to global war. And I think it's important to confront this question of how did the First World War really start? Because if we don't learn that lesson, and we are doomed to repeat it, that's a horrible thought, because of course the World War I was a battle on the scale and scope of nothing that the world had ever seen to that point. The taking of more lives in single battles than would have been lost in entire campaigns in previous wars. And so if we don't learn that lesson, then we may be doomed to repeat it. And I see a lot of eerie parallels between the rise of Germany to threaten the British Empire 100 years ago and the rise of China to threaten the American Empire in our current day and age. And I certainly would not like to see a repeat of what happened 100 years ago happen in the near future. So I hope we can take the time to reflect on something, and rather than just give lip service to Remembrance Day and never forget and all of that rhetoric, maybe we can actually try to remember what it is we're supposed to remember about that.
James, what's the documentary called, and where can people see it?
It will be called The World War I Conspiracy. It will be released on the 11th of November, and it will be at CorbettReport.com. That's CORBETT report.com.
James, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you for taking the time.
My guest has been James Corbett, publisher of the CorbettReport.com. He was speaking to us from Japan, where he has worked and lived since 2004. And that wraps up our show for this week. We'd like to thank our guests, Ross Clark, Maxime Bernier, James Corbett, and thank you for listening. If you have any questions for the show, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Now stand by for a company showcase update from Larry Reaugh, the CEO and president of American Manganese. I'm Jim Goddard. We'll be back next week with more This Week in Money.
Comments made on This Week in Money are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. This Week in Money is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated. Executive producer is Tom Allen. Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HoweStreet.com.
I'm Jim Goddard. I'm speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and president of American Manganese. Larry, welcome back to the show.
Oh, glad to be here, Jim.
Larry, you're speaking to us from the New Orleans Investment Conference. What's happening in the Big Easy?
Well, it's an interesting conference, Jim. Today it's busy, so we should be seeing a lot of action. We've seen some good action at our booth so far today. We're seeing a little bit of a price move up in the stock, which is always encouraging. And we had some interesting things happening in the week. We had that video put out, which I thought was very catchy and very, self-explanatory. And I think that was a good hit amongst our investors and perhaps new eyes on the recycling opportunity. And we had a great write-up by Stockhouse, the best kept secret in the battery industry, which is really recycling is not getting the attention that perhaps a battery manufacturer or an EV manufacturer are getting today, but that's going to change. They're talking now about a second cycle in the battery metals, which certainly includes all the metals that we deal with, and that would be nice to see. I'm seeing a better market. I think we will have a good fall and a good beginning of next year. At that time, we should hope to have our patents published and be well along in our recycling opportunity with our pilot plants. So everything's looking pretty good in that direction, Jim. We've had some interesting people by the booth. Everybody tells me that there will be more interesting people tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to that. And we seem to get a decent reception, a good reception wherever we go. So that's a big plus for the company. Now, there's a lot of news out there coming up on batteries. It's a steady flow, and as you can tell, EV batteries have reached a momentum now that they're here to stay. And when they really start boosting up to millions of sales of EV cars with the batteries in them, that will and that'll be per year. Then the opportunities for recycling companies like ourselves are going to just spread. You see news today where other companies are getting more and more news on recycling, which is still pretty pos. There's a paucity of news, and so the more people talking about it, the merrier we are, because eventually they'll come down to boiling down the companies that are involved. When they get interested in the recycling companies, and certainly we will pop up in that. So the show's a good one. It was a torturous trip down here. It's you get up at 4 in.the morning, you finally get here and get your rooms about 7 in the evening, and then we got the torturous trip back to get back on early Monday morning, about 1 o'clock in the morning. So that part is excruciating, but I think the results are going to be good.
Larry, for people who are new to your technology, can you maybe explain what American Manganese does and what it's developed?
American Manganese is a critical metals company that is focusing on its patented process for actually processing low grades of ore in Arizona. Now, that said and done, the chemistries will also work on recycling batteries. We spent millions of dollars, Jim, trying to get the results that we did for the manganese, and now we already spent millions of dollars on the patent process that we're doing for the batteries to get 100% of the cathode materials out. So that's our focus now, is saying, well, we looked at mining manganese. Manganese prices would not support a new endeavor right now, but certainly the prices in the cathode. If I was to say to you, Jim, look at, what would you say to mining an ore body that was worth $15,000 to $20,000 a ton of material? You'd be salivating, and it would be one of the best deposits you ever had. Well, that's what we have when we mine batteries. It's $15,000 to $20,000 a ton. We have to overcome barriers like disassembly and how we process the material and the new technologies involved, but it's well worth it. And we're traded on the Vancouver Venture Exchange under the symbol AMY. We're traded in the U.S. under the symbol AMYZF. We're traded in Frankfurt under the symbol 2AM. Our website is AmericanManganeseInc.com. You can contact the company at 778-534-4444, or you can email me at LREAUGH@AMYMN.com.
Larry, thanks a lot for the update.
You're welcome.
I'm Jim Goddard. I've been speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and President of American Manganese. He was speaking to us from the New Orleans Investment Conference. Our conversation took place on November 2nd.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at HowStreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.